All right, guys, welcome back to episode 8 of the Casual Combat MMA podcast. My name is Nelson Baker. We got our co-host Cal Gerber. How you doing, Cal?
Chilling. Doing good, man. Life's good.
Awesome. And it looks like Trace's picture already popped up. Looks like he made a noise. If you couldn't already tell by the title of this episode, we have returning to the podcast our friend and resident pro fighter, Trace Engelkes. How you doing, Trace?
What's up, guys? Good to be back. I'm doing awesome.
Awesome. So we're going to get into your upcoming pro debut at the end of the episode, but just so you guys know, Trace will be fighting this weekend on October, is it 16th?
16th.
October 16th in the Caged Aggression promotion in Iowa. So again, we'll plug all that stuff later. We'll talk about the ins and outs, but yesterday we had an absolute banger of a card, one that kind of flew under the radar. You know, a great main event, co-main event, but I think a lot of people were sleeping on this card, and there were so many awesome finishes, so many bangers of fights. Cal, you want to run us through some of the notable undercard fights that?
Yeah. Yeah, I think Nelson and I both watched this. Rest in peace to the undefeated guys. Holy crap.
Yeah.
I did very bad with my picks this week, and I think a lot of people probably didn't do very well either. But to start, I had highlighted Omar Morales, who looked okay, but more impressively is Giga Chikadze looked really good, I thought. His striking seemed to keep Morales off balance the whole fight. He was switching between orthodox and southpaw like the entire time, and he was like, it seemed like he was seemingly fainting every second, like he's stopping, fake kick, fake punch, just so much activity. I thought he looked really good. I was really impressed with him.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. I turned on the fights at about like 5 o'clock and only saw the decision, like him getting his hand raised.
Okay.
I saw on social media, everybody was blowing up at how clean Chikadze looked and how overwhelmingly unanimous that decision was.
Overwhelming would be a perfect way to describe how his striking looked. So I went back and I guessed, I did a little research because I'm like, what the heck? Like, based on the guys he's lost to, I didn't think he'd look as good as he did. He had pretty much until recently no grappling experience whatsoever. He's a straight kickboxer. And he'd been submitted twice by two good grapplers. So his striking is really high level. I guess he's working a lot on his grappling. We'll see where that gets to. I still think he's going to struggle with a good wrestler or jiu-jitsu guy, but striking-wise, he looked really good.
Yeah, you know, and I think this is kind of a question that we can pose to Trace. Me being, you know, and you and I, Cal, and Trace as well, being lifelong wrestlers, I feel like a guy who is just a straight striker that then tries to learn wrestling and grappling and jiu-jitsu, you know, as an aid to their fighting, like I feel like that is such a more overwhelming task than, you know, maybe learning how to strike. And that's coming from me who has never learned how to strike either. But Trace, you know, I'm sure that you've gotten a hold of some guys who, you know, are just strikers. How does it feel to really grab a guy who doesn't have any experience, who's trying to learn?
Oh, for sure, man. Wrestling's king. Wrestling's king in that world. Somebody throws an overextended right hand, you know, it's super easy to get underneath a punch if somebody's really trying to take your head off with it. And I've been underneath some really good strikers, and they're like, they feel like paper when you grab them. You know, you can tell they haven't spent their whole life wrestling. And it's like, you know, you can become a proficient striker, I feel like, especially in MMA, where there's so much to think about. When someone has to think about protecting their legs from shots or, you know, getting body locked, it lets your striking open up a lot more. It's kind of the same thing. Like, you don't see anybody start wrestling when they're like 25 and get really, really good at it. It just doesn't happen, you know, where in striking, you can see people, you know, become really high level strikers when they started striking when they're 18, 20 years old. Same thing in jiu-jitsu. You know, you can start doing jiu-jitsu when you're 20 and be a black belt by the time you're 35, you know, and you don't become a world-class wrestler if you start that late. It just doesn't happen.
So, yeah, that's, you know, looking forward, I think that is maybe where we will see Giga Chikadze struggle with. But like I said, I didn't see the fight, so I can't hop on the bandwagon too much. But from what everybody said, I think he'll be a fun guy to keep an eye on in the future.
Yeah, for sure. The next fight I think we should sadly highlight is our guy, Impa.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
For those of you who didn't watch the podcast before, I got in close to the microphone. I ASMR'd. I told Impa that I loved him, that I would love to have him on the podcast. And although that is still true, Impa, I still love you. I would still love you to come on this podcast. Oh, boy.
He did nothing wrong. That's what hurts. Nothing wrong. He just got, man. That block was perfect. Opposite hand down so he doesn't get question mark. And you could tell once he caught it, he dropped his right hand and he was thinking about throwing it, and he just thought just a couple seconds too long, man. And that one scared me because I watched it and I was like, oh, well, if I had done that, it would have happened to me too. I would have definitely let that happen. I think just about anybody would. That was a special kick that he got hit with. And it's like, I doubt you'll see too many of those that land like that ever again, if ever again.
Yeah, our podcast is the Casual Combat MMA podcast. Obviously, we're geared at those casual fans. I had 2 texts from some of my friends who I assume have never seen a fight before, only saw the fight or the highlight on Instagram on like ESPN's main account. And one of my buddies said, just so we're clear, like, you don't prepare for something like this, do you? And I said, this is coming from me. That guy has never practiced that strike, and there was absolutely nothing that Impa could have done to survive that. Like, that was just a perfect storm of it was a perfect storm.
He's practiced a back kick, you know, like, and he's being very proficient with a back kick is what allows him to do that. But I sincerely doubt he's been letting people single leg him, a low heel single leg, and then him throw up and hit a pad on a spinning back kick, you know. But in the interview afterwards, he talked about that a little bit. And it was funny because I was sitting in bed with my girlfriend, and I was scrolling through my Instagram feed, and I was like, look at this. And it was like my whole feed, like 8, 9, 10, 12 posts in a row, like all in a row of just that kick.
That the video that ESPN MMA posted of that kick had like 12 million views by today.
It was the UFC's most interacted with video of all time.
Yeah, in like 24 hours. Wow. I mean, I bet I've watched it 15 times at least.
I've at least watched it 15 times.
Oh yeah, especially the one with all the different angles on it, where it's like, man, to see him turn, look over his shoulder, and like he knew right before he did it, he was throwing it. There are plenty of strikes you throw where like, you know, that maybe they're not. Especially me, I'm still a fairly inexperienced striker, where I start throwing something and I'm not really thinking about it. That was a well thought out kick.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing that I found very interesting, and I don't know, kind of bullshit, and I'm a big Dana fanboy. Like, I am not a Dana White hater. I love what he's done with not only the UFC, but the sport and promoting it, and what he's done with ESPN. But in the back, he was high-fiving with Buckley and telling him that KO was worth $200,000, that he was going to get all the bonuses for the night. And then he paid the man $50K. Just gave him knockout of the night.
Yeah, that's goofy. I mean,
well, he said
that frustrates me.
Yeah, he said Sean Shelby said that he wanted to give him all $200,000, and it wouldn't surprise me if Dana wrote him a check that he didn't talk about, that Joaquin didn't talk about. Like, for instance, that happens a decent amount. I don't know how often, but DC.
Yeah, that's the story I've heard too.
Mm-hmm.
He got his
paid. Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, well, I hope that is the case, because as much as I love Impa, I have to say that is probably the most impactful knockout that I've ever seen in my life. You know, I mean, whether it was the most technical or the most powerful, or, I mean, it was the most, like, put my hands on my head and just, you know, it was insane.
It looks like something you would do, like in a video game where you were Spider-Man and you're kicking somebody.
Yeah. Unreal.
Yeah. And the last thing that I'll say about this is it didn't even look like the heel land. Like, it looked like just the ball of his foot hit, but dude, it just must have hit so hard. Like, I've never been kicked in the face. Like, I just imagined that you would need the heel to connect to knock somebody out on a kick like that, but nope, it didn't look like it.
No. And I'm sure as he was holding that leg and he saw the foot coming, it was just like a quick uh-oh, and then nothing.
Yeah.
Just cut the lights off.
Yeah. And
Well, even worse for him, if you watch it too, like for whatever reason, his head starts to come forward, like into the kick. Like, because I think when he caught the original kick, he like stepped back to catch it, and then was coming back in to engage. So he's coming forward right into the kick to the dome.
yeah.
Ugh.
And I know I said that was the last thing that I would say about this, but now this is actually the last thing I'll say about this. This could not have happened to a better guy, man. Impa is the nicest, most gracious, like within an hour of getting knocked out cold and becoming a meme for probably eternity, he came out with like, God bless you. It was a pleasure sharing the cage. Like, man, I really wish it would have happened to a guy that like needed to be humbled. And damn it, it was Impa.
Mm-hmm. You hate to see it.
You hate
But you love to see it.
It's too nice.
But I love to see it.
Too nice.
All right, Kat, what you got for us next?
I thought Chris Dawkins looked really good. He had a knockout in 45 seconds over Rodrigo Nascimento.
Was that the heavyweight fight?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chris Dawkins was like 30 or 40 pounds lighter. I think he weighed in at like 220 or something.
Yep.
And just really let his hands go and looked really good. I don't really have anything else to add on to that. Just I thought he impressed me.
Yeah,
I thought he was outmatched in.
I'm going to be honest. I think I was still tweeting about the –
Yeah, I think we're all in shock and like 45-second knockout the next fight.
Yeah. But yeah.
First fight on the main card, Ilya Topuria, I thought looked like everything I thought he would.
Yeah.
He was our underdog pick. He was a plus 150 underdog, and you and I both agreed that we thought that was wrong and that he would win that fight.
Yep.
And he was winning it really handily. He definitely got super tired in the third round, though, and the dude was like leaning up against the fence.
Yeah.
But like I said last week, he'd never fought in a fight longer than 3 minutes and 30 seconds. So
Yeah.
fighting your first 15 is probably tough.
Yeah. And Ilya Topuria had an awesome trapped arm body lock that he just belly to belly suplexed. I tweeted out that the Greco wrestler in me was super happy to see that. Trace, I saw that you were all over that, you being a Greco guy too. And instantly Felder, I didn't know that Topuria was a Greco guy, but instantly Paul Felder was like, and that is his Greco-Roman wrestling experience, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah, I love seeing that. There's a couple good Greco guys now. Him and Marco Madsen is just awesome to watch. I hate that I had to watch him beat Austin Hubbard, but I mean, Austin, that was a fair loss.
Yeah.
He's a super, super good Greco wrestler.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people like to say like wrestling is super important. Like I said, wrestling is king earlier, but honestly, man, if you had to rank them, I'd say on your feet, Greco is the most important wrestling style in MMA. Mm-hmm. On the ground, folk style for sure. If I had to pick 2 out of the 3 to do, I would only do Greco and folk style for my MMA. Freestyle, if I'm doing folk style, I'm getting the same advantage out of it as if I'm doing folk style. Or if I'm doing folk style, I'm getting the same advantages as if I did freestyle. Yeah. But I mean, at the end of the day, Greco is the closest style of wrestling to like a street fight, other than like Sambo, which is not really wrestling to me. It's more like MMA.
And one of before we started this podcast, probably like a year before we started this podcast, I had called in with a video for Chael Sonnen's YouTube show, The Bad Guy Incorporated. And my question is that, how he uses his wrestling, or how he used his wrestling in his fight style. And he even said that he believes that Greco is the best core, like neutral wrestling style, because for some reason, guys that, are more postured up like this are generally better strikers than guys that are postured like this, which are more traditionally freestyle guys. And you look, and we definitely have in the UFC and in MMA, your folk style and freestyle guys. Henry Cejudo comes to mind instantly, and, Yoel Romero. But when you look at American, greats, as in, Chael Sonnen and Randy Couture and Dan Henderson, and I'm sure I'm missing some other greats.
Matt Lindland.
I don't know how I forgot that one. But those are all Greco guys, and he thinks that it is a perfect mesh of like combining wrestling and striking into, you know, a more neutral stand-up game, which I found very interesting.
I agree with Chell on that. One place I do disagree with Chell with is, I don't know if it was in a similar episode or something, but he addressed who he thought was the best Greco wrestler in the history of the U.S., and he said it was Matt Lindland, and I just strongly disagree with that. I don't think he's very good, yeah, but I don't think he's Joe Warren. I would say Joe Warren is even better, but yeah, I don't know if that was meant to ruffle feathers or not, because Chael says stuff to ruffle feathers all the time, but that seemed not true.
Yeah. Well, you also have to look at it in the lens of those guys that started Quest. You know, they were all the, you know, him, Lindland, and Couture were those big three that started Quest. So they're like best friends too. So.
Oh yeah, if Chael eats, everybody eats.
Absolutely. So that was our first on the main card. Cal, where are we going from here?
Tom Aspinall fought next and got a quick knockout.
Yeah,
that was a huge mismatch. I mean, there really was no reason for that fight to even happen. I mean, I think it was a late replacement for a COVID of his planned opponent, but yeah, I mean, he looked good, but I don't know. He was so much better than that guy. Yeah, it was a bad fight.
Yep.
Not much else to say there. Next, we had Dricus Du Plessis made his UFC debut, and he looked pretty good. He got the KO on Marcus Perez.
Yep.
I thought you could tell, like, at first, I was like, wow, this guy doesn't look like what I thought. But then I think he settled in a little bit and really looked more like what I thought we were going to see out of him. I think we were right last week when we talked about this being a stepping stone for a guy who the UFC thinks is going to be pretty tough, putting him as the fourth to final fight in his UFC debut against Marcus Perez. You know, the UFC was looking for him to get this knockout that he got.
Yeah. And I have to apologize to our hundreds and thousands of viewers. I didn't realize that Marcus Perez was the guy that painted his face like the Joker. If I knew that was the guy that painted his face like the Joker, I would have disowned him much more than I did. And I was already pretty harsh to him. For some reason, it scares me. He looks really scary when he does that, but not like intimidating scary. Like stupid might shoot me scary.
I, for one, thought it was cool. I thought it was cool. I liked it. And here's why. Because he does it so well. Like the mouth, the mannerisms. It looks so like I tried to imagine what I would be like if someone did that to me. And I'd smile and it's good. It's good. Like you're doing a good job of it.
He got himself on ESPN that day. I mean,
yeah. And if he did it and was bad at it, I would not like it. I don't know, but like he nailed it. Yeah, that's the only reason I like it.
It's just unsettling, and I don't like it because of
my only problem with it is that I think he did it, then he went on Lost.
Yeah,
you can do whatever you want if you're beating somebody up. Then I really don't care.
But you gotta own it, man. It's like shit talking. You know, it's part of the sport. We're not paid to fight. We're paid to entertain. That's part of it too. You know, and he definitely meets that aspect of being an MMA fighter. Like it's entertaining to watch, and you know, what you don't want to do is worse than being that guy and losing is being that guy and going out and just fighting a shitty fight. Like at least he fought and got knocked out. You know, like it'd be one thing if he went in there and then ran and played conservative and lost a decision where people were disappointed and there was no action. At least he moved forward and something happened. It didn't work out for him, but you know, now, that's the game you play.
Yeah. One thing I want to point out that no one's talking about and that I do want to give Marcus Perez credit for is that as he got knocked out, he was mid spinning 6-12 back elbow that was literally 1 inch from landing and knocking Dricus out. Like it was an awesome, like ducking, spinning back elbow that it was very reminiscent of when Yair knocked TKZ in like the last 2 seconds. It was the exact same move. He got clipped and knocked out cold as he was doing it, which clearly is not the game plan. But
so I've been noticing on Facebook, totally different. Circling back to Trace talking smack and stuff. noticed Trace hasn't been saying a whole bunch of stuff on social media about this guy he's fighting this weekend. So last week I took the liberties of friending his opponent on Facebook, and now every day I just message him, "You suck."
I'm not.
8 a.m. I get on there, I say, "Hey, you suck."
Yeah, I'm not huge into it just because, like, if I were shit talking over like 10 grand, that'd be one thing, but that's not the case yet. And just, I'm like you, Cal, where like, I don't want to do the shit talking and lose, which is a pussy move, because that means that I'm fine with shit talking if I know I'm going to win.
Yes.
Which is like, I should probably start shit talking people more often. I get told all the time, like, you look too nice. Just like, maybe I'm just a nice guy. I don't know. Like, nice guy works for some people. Stephen Thompson makes it work, but that's part of the game now.
Just for the record, I haven't been messaging him.
I wish you were. That would make me laugh.
I did look him up on Facebook, though. I messaged you. I'm like, I think he looks soft. You're going to kill him.
I hope so, man. I think so.
All right. So before you go to the next one, let's get through these. We all like each other so much, but we're already on a half hour, and I'd like this episode to be under an hour. So let's grind through these last 3 fights, maybe highlight 1 or 2 for next week, and then let's get into talking about Trace.
Okay, perfect. Rosswell, Tibera. I thought Marcin Tibera he fought a good fight. I think he can do well in the heavyweight division.
His cardio was a lot better than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, and Ben Rothwell is still he's going to be Ben Rothwell. He's not I don't think he's going to get a ton better between now and the end of his career, or a ton worse. It's just going to be, you get what you get with Ben Rothwell. In the co-main, we had Edson Barbosa beat Makwan Americani. Looks solid.
Edson Barbosa looks like he is ready to take on the top of the top featherweights. Maybe not beating the top of the top featherweights, but he is definitely higher than his 14, ranking. He's definitely better than that. But he's new to the weight. I understand why that number was there, but
when he lost to Ige, they had to respect that, even though that was the wrong decision.
Yep.
And then our main event, Corey Sandhagen KO'd Marlon Moraes in the second.
Dude, I mean, and I'm going to be upfront with, the hundreds of thousands of listeners that we have. I picked Corey Sandhagen in last week's episode. Cal picked Moraes, and 5 minutes before the fight, I texted Cal and I said, I'm switching my pick. I think that Moraes takes it. There's no way that Corey Sandhagen does it. And then I just had to shove my words straight into my mouth.
And I didn't want to let you take that either. I texted you back and I said, no, it's too late.
Yeah.
I wish you would have texted me. I'd have been like, no, dude, take Sandhagen. Sandhagen's tough, man. He's a pretty dynamic striker. I said it last time I was on the podcast. I like the stuff that's coming out of Team Elevation. Mm-hmm. They've got an awesome squad there, and Sandhagen definitely leads the way with them. He's a super, super tough fighter. He kind of reminds me of like Scott Holtzman a little bit. How he works the fence with his elbows. He's got good elbows. Just a tough dude.
Dude, he's so well-rounded. I mean, I went, like I said, I went back on my word. I picked Sandhagen, went to Moraes, but his striking looked really clean. His jiu-jitsu on the ground is really clean. I don't know if I don't know of his wrestling background or if he has a wrestling background. But there is no place where I feel like Corey Sandhagen is not sufficient. Like, I don't think he is the best at anything that he does, but he is elite at everything he does, if that makes sense, which is a good recipe for a championship fighter.
For sure.
Yeah, I agree with all that. I don't have a whole lot else to add there. There's not much else to say from that fight.
Hold on, I got one more thing.
Beautiful.
His post-fight interview, he said that he picked up his spinning back kick or his spinning heel kick over quarantine, just at home on his Bob dummy, which is awesome.
It probably is true. I mean, I would
Yeah.
guess if he didn't have a lot of options for what he could do for a while, he's probably like, all right, this is the one thing I'm going to work on and get good at. And it's weird how things like that end up working out.
I was surprised that put Marias down. It didn't seem to, it like looked like it landed with his calf on the top of the head too.
Yeah.
I don't think he was all the way out or anything.
Nope.
Like, yeah, hit the ground and it just gave him a good opportunity to finish the fight. I think if if that's how his kicks have been landing, maybe he has been throwing it on a Bob dummy, you know. But he was just in a little close. Had he been 6 inches out when he threw that, it'd have been lights out for sure. But I mean, that kick landing ends the fight regardless whether he finished it with punches or it ends it with just the kick. So I mean, good on him.
Yeah, I'm with you. I thought it whiffed. Like just the bang bang aspect of it. Like I thought it whiffed, and then I saw him roll back, and I was like, "What?" But it was cool.
Yeah, huge win for Corey. Probably gonna get it sounds like it's a good chance he's gonna get Dillashaw now.
Yeah, we'll see what Dana does. Dana's gonna favor Dillashaw, so I wouldn't be surprised with that.
Yeah. So you want to let's just run through the main card on this next fight, and we'll go kind of quick. There's only a couple fights in here where I'd really feel like we need to talk about them. Otherwise we'll just introduce what's going on. The first fight, we have Thomas Almeida versus Jonathan Martinez. So Almeida has lost 3 of his last 4. He's 22-3. He started out 21-0. Then he lost to Cody Garbrandt, lost to Rob Font. He doesn't have a win since 2016. It's kind of he's been slipping since he lost his first fight.
Yeah.
Not a whole lot on Jonathan Martinez. He's 12-3, no casual wins or losses, 3-2 in the UFC. There's no odds on this fight right now that I could find. I think it's kind of could go either way. We'll see if Thomas Almeida can come back and maybe return to his old form, or if he just doesn't have it anymore.
Yeah, and you know, like most of these most recent episodes, Cal is the one that's doing this research. And I'm kind of just giving my jerk reaction, but a guy like Thomas Almeida, I have to feel like, you know, me being the casual MMA fan that I am, I've got to go with Thomas Almeida. I know he's kind of on a skid, but that is a name that stands out to me, a name that I know. And as a casual fan, more often than not, those names that you know are going to prevail over those names that you don't know, but this is MMA and anything can happen. So,
yeah, the thing I like about him too is he's only 29 and he hasn't fought for 2 years. So hopefully he's taking that time to just work hard, refocus, and he could come out brand new. I think maybe taking 2 years off in a situation like that where you've won a ton, he won 21 in a row to start his career, stumbling a little bit. I think maybe taking a couple of years just to focus on training and stuff isn't a bad move.
Yeah.
Then the next fight we have Modestas Bukakas versus you give me something better than that. Versus Jimmy Crute. Modestas is 11-2. He's a plus 275 underdog. He's on a 7-fight win streak with 7 finishes. I think this is his UFC debut. Crute is 11-1. He's 4-1 in the UFC. He has 4 first-round finishes in the UFC and 8 finishes total. He's a minus 360 favorite. I have no idea. I think these lines are really far apart, which obviously is going to make me lean towards Jimmy, but the other guy has 7 finishes in a row. Neither of them have lost that many fights or lost recently. They both have a lot of finishes. I think this should be a really fun fight to watch and to see who is going to take off with their career here.
Yeah, it's hard to find a chink in the armor of a guy who's had 7 finishes in a row.
Right.
But obviously the odds makers have that evidence because they're not going to lose money on this fight. So,
But as far as betting on Jimmy Crute, I would not do that.
No.
It's not enough money to be made, and I don't know. I mean, if you want to throw a little bit of money at Modestas and hope he gets another finish, you never know. Then our next events, we got Caitlin Chikagian versus Jessica Andrade. So that's a pretty good fight.
That is a really good fight.
Andrade is 20-8. She kind of came out to the scene when she slammed Rose Namajunas on her head and got the KO. She's got another win over Angela Hill. She most recently lost to Rose in I believe it was a 5-round fight. She lost via split decision. She's got another loss to Wei Ling. And
Zhang Weili.
Zhang Weili. There you go, buddy. I got nervous right away. I'm like, oh boy.
Yeah, I gotta give it to Andrade on that one, man. Chikugian's good, but I think Andrade's boxing is pretty good. She had a great fight with Rose. Rose is awesome, but I think Chikugian's still maybe a little more green than Andrade. So it'll be interesting to see. We're either going to see like a borderline rise to stardom for Chikugian, or we're going to see Andrade just rocket herself back to the top, I think.
Yep.
Yeah,
I agree. I'm picking Andrade for that one.
I am as well. I mean, Chikagian's got a loss to Jessica Ai, who is a solid fighter, but I don't think Jessica Andrade would lose to someone like that. I mean, her losses are legit losses. And she's obviously right there with Rose, so that's who I got too. In our co-main event, we have Surly Gain versus Ante Delia. Not a whole lot on either.
All right, hold on. I won't correct you much this episode.
I'm done. I quit.
I'm pretty sure it's Surreal Gane.
Surreal? How do you get surreal out of Cyryl? You might be right.
Cyrl? Cyril?
Cyryl? Yeah, you're right. Cyryl Gane.
Yeah, okay. Now, I might be totally off on that as well, but I got to give you a little shit.
Well, it would be easier if you had to pronounce them first, and then I got to listen and tell you
whether but
bad or not.
That's how this works. I do the editing, you do the research. Okay?
All right. Anyways, he's 6-0. He's a -600 favorite. He's got 5 finishes in a row. There are 5 finishes. His last fight was a decision win over Tanner Bosser. Delia is 17-3, +400 underdog. He has a loss to Tibera, who fought this past weekend. I think this is pretty. I think we're gonna get Surly. I didn't want to say his name.
You said Surly.
It's a very surly character. I saw his fight with Tanner Boser. That was a good fight. I mean, yeah, it's heavyweight, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you're gonna get what you're gonna get at that fight. I would obviously put my money on Cyril.
Surly. His name, I will now be referring to him as Surly.
Surly.
Oh, damn. Dude, I almost was going to pick Delia just because I'm pretty sure that's how his name's said. I'm just going to go with the name I know I can pronounce. And then we got a great main event. We have Brian Ortega versus the Korean Zombie. Brian Ortega is making his return to the ring. He's 14-1. He's a +155 underdog. He's got a win over Frankie Edgar and Cub Swanson. His last fight was the loss to Max Holloway in 2018. And the Korean Zombie is a -190 favorite. He's 16-5. He's got a win over Frankie Edgar, Dustin Poirier. He's got a loss to Aldo and his most recent loss was to Yair Rodriguez, and he is 6-2 in the UFC. I think I'm definitely favoring the Korean Zombie here.
Yep, I'm going TKZ. Not because I have this, great breakdown of why, technically I think he's going to win, but I don't like Brian Ortega. And I can't even tell you why I don't like Brian Ortega, but I just don't. And I like the Korean Zombie. So, yeah, that's why I'm picking it.
You don't like him because of that Modelo commercial my mom's calling me.
That's all right. Oh, no.
Did we lose Trace?
Oh, we lost Trace.
But anyways, we'll finish up this fight and then.
Yeah, and then we'll edit Trace back in.
Trace. Anyways, yeah. I think the Korean Zombie will win. I think it's going to be a close fight, most likely.
Mm-hmm.
Unless Korean Zombie gets a knockout. But
yeah,
I see this going all 5 rounds and the Korean Zombie winning by decision.
Yeah. Well, okay, now I'm going to break it. I said I didn't have a technical breakdown. Okay, Trace is back, so we don't even have to do any editing.
I'm back.
Perfect.
My mom called me like 3 times. I don't know what she needs, but what I was going to say is you don't like Koreans, or you don't like Brian Ortega because of that Modelo commercial getting shoved down your throat. And that's why. And probably because he slapped that one dude. But I would take TKZ too. I think TKZ is going to have a little edge up. Even though Brian Ortega had like a quick rise to the top, what really did it for him was like just incredible jiu-jitsu, really good jiu-jitsu finishes. But I think Max Holloway picking him apart the way he did showed a real big weakness for him. If he can't get on top, it's going to be trouble for him for sure. I think definitely Korean Zombie on that one.
Yeah. And it is just the classic striker versus grappler. I think whoever dictates the pace and where the fight occurs, I think will take it. And I mean, we start on the feet, so I'm going to take Korean Zombie.
I also don't know why that wasn't more talked about or put on a bigger card. That would have been a great opener for a main card on a much bigger card. So I don't get why they did that. But, this card needed a little bit of fire to get put together. So I like that they're throwing a big fight at the end of it, but I wish it would have been on a pay-per-view.
Yeah. This one could have been a really nice fight to pull out of your sleeve now that Garbrandt pulled out of the Figueiredo fight. This would have been a great card to have, or fight to have sitting. We're going to put it, we're going to keep this. And obviously you can't keep a fight. You have to give the fighters a date, but this would have been a great fight to co-main. Now that fight with, I believe it's Perez and Figueiredo.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. All right, well, that's what we got for the fights. Let's focus on Trace a little bit.
Yeah. So, Trace, you are making your pro debut on October 16th, which is this upcoming Friday. Like I already said, in Cage Aggression. Tell us a little bit about how you're feeling, how your fight camp has been going, and how you're preparing for this fight.
Super excited, man. I know that my camp is just better. I've met one of the best camps in the world, some of the best fighters in the world I get to train with. So, it makes me feel good. It gives me a lot of confidence going in, knowing that, I have rounds against some incredible fighters, and I get to fight with them, wrestle them, strike with them. So it's really exciting to see how that is going to wear out, or how that's rubbed off on me in the past 18 months, because it has been so long since I fought last. So it's going to be fun to see where I measure up compared to my past fights.
Mm-hmm. And now you were planning on fighting a long time ago and making your pro debut a long time ago, but I believe there was an injury there, then there was COVID hit. And so obviously it's, time spent that you would rather have spent in the, the cage, but it's nice that you're being able to make something work here, even when there's still a lot of restrictions going around with those, not smaller promotions, but, those smaller promotions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. I would have liked to have taken it a while back, but, after I took some time out for getting a little injury and then got back into it, I just kind of kept telling myself, like, okay, if I fight 2 weeks later, I fight 2 weeks better. If I fight 2 months later, I fight 2 months better. So I can get a lot done in 6 weeks at the MMA Lab. I can learn a lot. I can become a much better fighter in a short amount of time there. So I know that time was important, and I'm not that upset about it. Like, if I would have, who knows where I'd be if I debuted, 6, 7, 8, 9 months ago.
Yeah.
Whatever happens. I'm glad I get to fight now. That's the biggest thing, especially where we're at now. I'm just happy I get to finally get in there after such a long training period. It's like a huge weight off my shoulders. Like, I'm the most relaxed I've ever been going into this fight, just because I've been training for it and thinking about it for so long now.
Mm-hmm. And now switching over to, you and I talked a little bit about this off camera, but how has the transition been from you fighting at welterweight, which is 170, versus wrestling in college at a weight of 174, which is obviously 4 pounds heavier? It seems like, you're in good spirits now. You're about a week out, it's going well. How has, adjusting to being able to fight at a little bit lower of a weight than you were used to competing at, for the last 6-7 years of your life?
Well, the weigh-ins are totally different. Weighing in an hour before you wrestle sucks. It's like, it's pretty miserable. You guys know. It's it's hard to have a bad cut, in wrestling, where I can drop that extra 4 pounds pretty easy. And I really think that, like, now in college, I always thought like 65 was way too hard to make. I wish we had a 65 now. I think I could definitely make 65, and I can make it pretty easy and not feel too crappy after following a weight cut. The night before weigh-in is a game changer for sure. I mean, I've wrestled in a few tournaments with a night before weigh-in, and felt really good and performed really well, even if I had a borderline bad cut. So, I mean, the biggest thing weight-wise for me that's going to be the transition is I'm not fighting at 85 anymore. I took a bunch of fights at 85, and I hope this guy looks at me and says, "Oh, you look small," because I'm going to say, "Oh, that's what all the 85ers said." So I'm really excited to fight some dudes that are closer to my size and, not 6'4".
Yeah, certainly.
So you must have some comfort in training where you do, like, we talked about this with Davion Franklin a little bit, that you fought people, I'm assuming, well, for sure you fought people in your room probably who are better than the guy who you're fighting this week. There's got to be some comfort in that.
For sure. He's not Jared Cannonier.
Right.
That's plain and simple. He's not even as big as Jared Cannonier. Jared is just a monster of a human being. And you don't get the full. He's not a tall guy, but just a very strong, wide person that you shoot in on a double on him, and you're hitting solid bricks. Like, you got to set your shots up on him. You can't take a bad shot on Jared, regardless of his wrestling level, just because he's so big and athletic. I've had rounds with dudes like James Nakashima, who's going for a one championship title in November, fighting, I can't remember his first name. His last name's Abasov, from Dagestan. So, I mean, you can imagine the type of level that James is fighting at. And I've never seen anybody walk someone down the way James Nakashima does. Just walks right into your face, just backs you up the whole time. And if I can even survive rounds with dudes like that, and I'm sure that gives me a huge amount of confidence. Anytime I start thinking I'm nervous, I just remember, like, oh, he's not Jared Cannonier. He's not James Nakashima. He's not Benson Henderson. I've done sparring rounds with all those guys, and they're next level. So if I can get through and make my wrestling work there and make my striking match up at least a little bit, I think I'm going to be fine.
And that's awesome. So on top of, how you're feeling about your fighting, how you're feeling about your weight cut, how you're feeling about your training, how are you feeling about just the way that your career has now kind of progressed and you moving across the country and going to a new place and now finally settling in and kind of finding your vibe as far as your career's going? How do you feel about that?
It was hard to leave at first. I went to college close to home. I never really left my wrestling club. I coached at my wrestling club all through high school or all through college. And then I picked a gym when I started MMA, picked a gym close to home. A lot of times, I go to the gym, stay at my parents' house, drive back to, my apartment where I was coaching at NIU, the next morning. But at the end of the day, I knew I wanted to be hand in hand with some of the best fighters in the world. So, when I moved out here, it's always tough being the new guy at the gym where you walk in and, it takes a while for you to fit into the groove. I think the MMA Lab was one of my shortest transitions into feeling like a part of the team. Everybody there is so welcoming and just so supportive. It's not like I was worried I was going to get to like a factory gym and become, a body bag, a heavy bag for somebody and not develop the way I wanted to, but that's not what the lab is at all. The lab is more like a family, When I win, we all win. When Jared wins, we all win. And that's top to bottom, whether you're, one of our amateur fighters that just got into our pro practice or you're fighting for a world title. I think that makes a huge difference. And Coach Crouch being, like a dad to a lot of people at the gym, which is like, he's such a dad to begin with, just like his personality. So I think, that settled me into being away from home, is finding, you know, a family that I'm spending a lot of time with. You know, we try to see each other outside of the gym, but I mean, we're seeing each other so much inside the gym anyway. It's really like a home away from home.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that was a good choice for you to move out there. I think you put yourself in a situation where you can really improve a ton. And I'm really excited to see what happens this weekend.
I can't freaking wait, man. It's been so, like, a lot of hard work, a lot of days where I woke up and questioned myself. And I just think back to like preseason wrestling. You know, preseason wrestling, if you don't wake up in preseason and question why you're doing what you're doing, at some point you're just not working hard enough.
Mm-hmm.
And I did that a lot in the last 18 months. Woke up, damn, like this is what I'm doing. Like, by the time I got out of bed, it was like, yeah, this is my life. This is what I want. This is my purpose, you know. And really believing that is a big deal in this game. You can't be 1 foot out the door and try and fist fight people. It just doesn't work out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And not only is that what you would want to hear as, you know, a fan of Trace Engelkes' fighting, but especially as a friend of Trace Engelkes as a person, you know, that's really awesome to hear. So now looking at this weekend and fighting with Caged Aggression, where can I mean, with the power of editing, I will be able to put right here the exact link that you'll be able to click on. If you're listening to this on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts, it'll be linked in the description. If you're watching this on YouTube, I will have the link absolutely linked. But what do they need to do to watch you and to support you?
Definitely just go to cagedaggression.tv. That's where you're going to find the fight at. There's 2 nights for this fight. So it'll be the Friday, October the 16th. Click on that one. Select me as your fighter to support me. And there's a bonus for whoever sells the most pay-per-views. So I've won, I think 1 or 2 cards I've been on, I sold the most pay-per-views. So I'm hoping to do that again and, you know, help with just training. And being an MMA fighter is a rough life. So, so I'm really, really appreciative for all the support I get from my fans, my friends, my family. It means a ton to me. You know, I wouldn't be where I am now without them. So please go to cagedaggression.tv and click on me for your fighter.
Absolutely. And I'm going to be blasting this out on MMA Twitter with that link exactly to Trace Engelkes. Help this man get the most pay-per-views on this Caged Aggression card. And Trace, thank you so much for coming on. This will not be the last time we see you. This was not the first time we see you on this podcast, but good luck, man. We are super excited to see what unfolds this weekend.
Thank you, brother. Man. Always a pleasure. Thanks, Cal.
Yeah.
All right. So, as always, like us on Twitter, follow us on whatever podcast hosting network that you use, whether that be Spotify, whether that be Google Podcasts, whether that be Apple Podcasts. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure to hit the like and subscribe. And with that, that wraps up episode 8. All right. Thanks, guys.